Hi, I'm Sophie, and this is my story. I was 26 when it all began. I'd been living in Chicago, Illinois, for a few years, working as a freelance illustrator, creating vibrant art for local bookstores and cafes. My apartment was a cozy loft in Logan Square. Think exposed brick walls, a cluttered desk with paintbrushes and a Wacom tablet, and a balcony overlooking mural-covered streets and bustling Ticarius. Life was a hustle, sketching for indie publishers by day, biking through Humboldt Park at dusk, painting late into the night with the L train humming outside. I loved Chicago's gritty charm, its deep dish pizza, jazz dives, Lake Michigan's moody waves, but I was lonely. Dating in the city was brutal, ghosted texts, shallow bar meetups, nothing real. I wanted a love that felt like a Chicago skyline at dusk, bold, warm, unforgettable. It all started one crisp September evening at a book fair in Printers Row. I was there for work, illustrating posters for a local press, weaving through stalls with my sketchpad. That's when I met him, Lucas. He was a musician, performing acoustic covers on a small stage, his dark curls falling over his eyes, wearing a worn leather jacket that screamed, tortured artist. His voice was soulful, singing a cover of the Lumineers that stopped me cold. I sketched him mid-song, and he caught me, flashing a grin. "Drawing me already?" he teased, his Chicago accent soft and warm. I blushed, showed him the sketch, and we hit it off. Lucas was a Chicago native, raised in a tight-knit family in Bucktown, weaned on vinyl records and open mic nights. By day, he taught music at a community center, but his passion was writing songs that captured the city's pulse, dreaming of a record deal. He had this magnetic energy, part poet, part hometown boy, quoting Bob Dylan one minute, joking about Chicago's wind the next. We talked until the fair closed, swapping stories about our favorite spots. He loved the burgers at Kuma's Corner. I was obsessed with sunrise sketches at Montrose Beach. He shared memories of busking on Michigan Avenue, and I opened up about growing up in a small Michigan town, where my mom taught me to paint the world's colors. When he asked to see me again, I said yes, my heart already humming his tune. Our first date was at Millennium Park, strolling under the bean, sharing coffee from a nearby cart as the city sparkled. Lucas was different. He listened, really listened, asking about my dreams of illustrating a children's book, my love for capturing stories in color. He played me a song he'd written, a ballad about Chicago's lights. "This is you, Sophie," he said, strumming his guitar. Bright, soulful, one of a kind. I melted. It was like a movie, and I was all in. We sat on the grass, watching tourists snap photos, and he told me about his dream to record an album that echoed the city's heart. I shared my goal of starting an art blog to showcase Chicago's creative soul. By the time we parted, I was falling hard. Our relationship was a Chicago melody, vibrant, soulful, full of promise. Within months, we were inseparable. We'd drive out to Evanston, where I'd sketch the lakeshore while he strummed chords under the trees. We'd hit up Chicago's music scene, losing hours at the Green Mill, swaying to jazz or dancing to indie bands. He'd surprise me with little gifts, a vintage paintbrush, a handwritten lyric tucked in my bag. We'd spend lazy Sundays at his place, a cluttered apartment in Wicker Park filled with records, guitar picks, and coffee stains, cooking breakfast tacos while he played Fleetwood Mac on his old stereo. "You're my song, Sophie," he'd say, and I'd laugh, saying I was just a girl with a paintbrush and big dreams. "Nah, you're my whole chorus," he'd reply, pulling me close, and I believed him. We built our own traditions. Every Saturday, we'd hit the Wicker Park Farmers Market, browsing local jams and picking out fresh apples, debating the best Chicago dog. He swore by Gene and Jude's. I was a Byron's girl. One time, he gave me a silver ring with a tiny music note charm. "So you'll always carry my melody," he said, slipping it on my finger with a smile that made my heart skip. We'd end the day at a dive bar in Logan Square, sipping Goose Island and sketching song lyrics on napkins. We talked about the future endlessly, him recording his album, me launching my blog and maybe a gallery show. We planned a road trip to Nashville, dreaming of music and art under starry skies. "You and me, Sophie, we're gonna write the world's soundtrack," he'd say, his hand in mine, and I pictured a life as vivid as Chicago's lights. Our first summer together was pure magic. We'd bike along the lakefront trail, stopping to paint or jam by the water. We'd crash open mic nights, where he'd sing and I'd sketch the crowd, the city's pulse in every note. He'd invite me to his music classes, letting me draw the kids as they learned guitar, their joy sparking my own. I'd share blog post drafts, nervous but thrilled when he'd say, "Sophie, you're gonna paint the world." We celebrated my 27th birthday at a rooftop bar in the Loop, where he sang a song he wrote for me, his voice weaving through the skyline. The crowd cheered, and I felt like the luckiest girl in the Windy City. But around the 2-year mark, things shifted. Lucas got distant. He'd cancel gigs, saying he was swamped with lessons or visiting family in Milwaukee. He'd go silent for days, then reappear with his usual charm, but something felt off. His phone was always on silent, and he'd dodge questions about his weekends. I tried to be supportive, music's tough, right? But my gut screamed trouble. My best friend, Riley, noticed too. We'd been friends since I moved to Chicago, bonding over our love for pierogi and art walks. "Sophie, he's hiding something," she said over coffee at Big Shoulders. "Don't ignore it." But I did. I wanted our melody to stay perfect, like a sunset over the lake. The first red flag was a call he took during dinner at my loft. He stepped outside, his voice low, and when he came back, he was tense, saying it was just a student's parent. But I saw a text flash on his phone from "Miss you. When are you back?" My stomach dropped. I asked, "Who's M?" He brushed it off, "Just a friend, Sophie, relax," but his eyes darted away. I let it go, telling myself I was paranoid, but the doubt lingered. Then came the gigs in Minneapolis that didn't add up. His Instagram showed him at cozy cafes, not stages. I noticed odd details: a woman's scarf in his car, a receipt for a Minneapolis diner for two when he'd said he was practicing. Riley kept saying, "Check his phone, Sophie. You deserve answers." But I didn't want to be that person. I clung to the hope that Lucas was still my song. The nightmare began one rainy November night. I was at my loft, painting, when my phone rang, an unknown number. A woman's voice, trembling, said, "Sophie, this is Lucas's sister, Claire. There's been an accident. Lucas, he didn't make it." My world stopped. She said he'd been in a car crash outside Milwaukee, hit by a drunk driver. I collapsed, sobbing, the paintbrush falling from my hand. The next week was a blur. Claire called again, saying the funeral was in Milwaukee, a private family affair. I begged to attend, but she said his parents wanted it small. I sent lilies, his favorite flower, and mourned alone, my loft filled with his records, his scent, his ghost. I wore his music note ring, clutching it like a lifeline. Chicago's skyline felt cruel. Every jazz bar, every lake path, every taco stand screamed his name. I grieved for months, painting dark, stormy canvases, each stroke heavy with loss. Riley stayed by my side, bringing takeout, holding me as I cried. My family in Michigan called daily, my mom, my brother Ethan, begging me to come home, but I couldn't leave Chicago, the city where I'd loved and lost him. The grief was suffocating. I stopped taking illustration jobs, my creativity drained. Clients noticed my work was lifeless, and I lost a big contract with a bookstore. I avoided Logan Square, the lake, even my balcony, terrified of memories. Friends tried to help. Riley dragged me to movie nights at the Logan Theater. My coworker Maya invited me to art walks, but I was a shadow. I gained weight from stress-eating Garrett's popcorn and Italian beef, stopped painting for fun, let my sketchpad gather dust. One low point was finding a lyric he'd written for me, tucked in a drawer, "Sophie, my light." I sobbed, hating how it still hurt. The loneliness was crushing. I'd lie awake, replaying our love, wondering why he was taken. Therapy with Dr. Chen, a gentle woman in the loop, became my anchor. "Sophie, grief is love with nowhere to go," she said. "Let it move through you." I tried, but I was drowning. The truth hit like a freight train a year later, in November, on a chilly day in Andersonville. I was at a cafe, sketching half-heartedly, when I saw him, Lucas, alive, across the street, pushing a stroller with a toddler and a woman by his side, laughing. My heart stopped, coffee spilling over my sketch. It couldn't be him, he was dead. But those curls, that leather jacket, that crooked smile were unmistakable. I stumbled outside, legs shaking, and followed them to a park. He was playing with the toddler, the woman, a brunette with a warm smile, kissing his cheek. I felt sick, my world spinning. I called out, "Lucas?" He turned, his face paling, and for a moment, we locked eyes. Then he grabbed the woman's hand, whispering something, and they hurried away. I stood frozen, rain soaking me, the music note ring burning on my finger. I called Claire, his sister, my voice trembling. After a long pause, she broke. There was no sister, no crash, no death. Lucas had faked it all. His real name was Lucas Carter, not Lucas Reed, and the woman I'd seen was Mara, his wife in Minneapolis. They'd been married for 5 years, with a 2-year-old daughter, Lily. He'd moved to Chicago to start fresh after a fight with Mara, keeping his marriage secret. When he realized he loved me but couldn't leave her, he panicked. Faking his death was his coward's way out, staging a call through a friend posing as Claire, dodging a funeral I'd never see. He'd returned to Minneapolis, reconciled with Mara, and rebuilt his life, leaving me to grieve a lie. "I'm so sorry, Sophie," the friend said, crying. "He made me do it." I hung up, my heart shattered, not just by his betrayal but by the year I'd spent mourning a ghost. The betrayal was a knife, twisting deeper than his death. I'd grieved a man who'd played me, built a family while I painted my pain. I tore off the ring, threw it into Lake Michigan, and screamed into the wind. Chicago's lights felt like a mockery. Every stage, every rooftop, every song was a lie. I felt like a fool. How had I not questioned the private funeral, the vague details? Was I not enough? I replayed every moment, every lyric, every kiss, every promise, wondering how I'd been so blind. Riley rushed over, holding me as I sobbed, her anger matching mine. "He's a coward, Sophie," she said. "You're stronger than his lies." But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, like a canvas torn in half. The next 8 months were a battle. I threw myself into work, but my illustrations were dark, chaotic, reflecting my rage. Clients dropped me, saying my art was too intense. I avoided music venues, terrified I'd hear a song that reminded me of him. I stopped eating, then binged on deep dish, my body a war zone of grief and anger. My family begged me to move back to Michigan. My brother Ethan drove down, walking the river walk with me, trying to pull me out. "You're a fighter, Sophie," he said, but I felt defeated. Therapy with Dr. Chen kept me afloat, her words a lifeline. "Sophie, you loved honestly. His lie doesn't define you." I clung to that, but the pain was relentless. The turning point came in July, a year and a half after this death. I was at a gallery in Pilsen, staring at a blank canvas, feeling like a husk, when I saw a flyer for a ceramics workshop. Desperate to feel anything, I signed up. The first class was messy, clay splattered everywhere, my bowl collapsing, but I laughed, a real, gut-deep laugh that felt like sunlight through Chicago's clouds. The instructor, Alma, with warm eyes and a thick Chicago accent, said, "Sophie, let the clay hold your story. It's not about perfection, it's about truth." I poured my pain into every piece, shaping vases and mugs that carried my grief, betrayal, and hope. Each session was a step toward healing. In that class, I met Lila, a sculptor who'd survived her own betrayal. We bonded instantly, and she became my rock, inviting me to art nights at her studio where we'd sip wine, create, and talk about anything but the past. I started saying yes to life again, slowly. I joined an art collective in Logan Square, a group of creatives who met in a mural-covered cafe. I shared illustrations, vibrant sketches of Chicago's grit, posters of its soul, pouring my heart into every line. The feedback was electric. Members said my art made them feel alive, like they weren't alone. One artist, Theo, told me, "Sophie, your work is Chicago's heartbeat." I started to believe him. I signed up for dance classes in the West Loop, stumbling through salsa at a sweaty studio, laughing as I tripped but finding joy in the rhythm. I started running along the lakefront trail at dawn, the skyline gleaming as I pushed forward, each step proof I was still here. I took a solo trip to Door County, renting a cabin, painting the lake as I journaled. It was scary to go alone, but it taught me I could be my own canvas, my own light. New people filled the void. At an art meetup, I met Ezra, a painter with a quick wit and a passion for street art. We collaborated on a blog series about Chicago's hidden gems, murals, jazz dives, secret cafes. It wasn't romantic, but it was real, reigniting my love for illustration. Ezra introduced me to Maya, a curator who ran gallery shows, and we bonded over our love for Chicago's creative pulse. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, walking dogs and falling for a scruffy mutt named Harmony, with bright eyes and a wagging tail. I adopted him, and he became my shadow, curling up beside me as I painted or journaled late into the night. I tried kayaking on the Chicago River, flipping over in the chilly water but laughing through every splash, feeling alive again. My creativity roared back, like a skyline lighting up at night. I revived my sketchpad, filling it with bold illustrations, and relaunched my blog, sharing my art alongside stories of healing. It grew fast. Readers emailed, saying my vulnerability gave them hope, that my work captured Chicago's soul. I pitched an art book to a local publisher, a collection of illustrations and essays about resilience, and they offered me a deal. Creating it, surrounded by a community who believed in me, felt like a dream I hadn't dared to dream. I started a YouTube channel, posting vlogs about my journey, art, heartbreak, healing. The response was overwhelming. Viewers shared stories of betrayal and recovery, building a community that felt like a warm hug. One video, where I talked about turning pain into art while shaping a clay vase, went viral, with comments like, "This gave me courage to start over." I cried reading them, realizing I wasn't alone. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, I'd hear a song or see a guitar and feel a pang, Lucas's ghost lingering. Therapy with Dr. Chen helped me navigate those moments, teaching me to honor the pain without letting it define me. I started hosting art workshops in Pilsen, giving creatives a space to share their stories. I took more solo trips, a weekend in Milwaukee to paint its breweries, a drive to the dunes to capture its sands. I returned to music venues, not as Lucas's girlfriend but as Sophie, the artist, embracing the city's rhythm without fear. My career soared in ways I hadn't imagined. My blog landed freelance gigs with national art magazines, and I was invited to speak at a conference in Minneapolis. Standing on that stage, sharing my journey from grief to strength, I felt like I'd found my truth. I started teaching illustration classes in Logan Square, helping others find their vision. My book, Colors of Resilience, became a Midwest hit, with readers saying it inspired them to face their own pain. I kept vlogging, sharing art tips, recipes, and stories, building a community that felt like family. 3 years later, I saw Lucas again at a music festival in Grant Park. He looked worn, his leather jacket faded, his dreams of a record deal stalled. He approached me, eyes heavy, and said, "Sophie, I'm so sorry. I was a coward." He admitted Mara had left him, taking their daughter, after learning about his lies. I waited for the old ache, the melody that once lit me up. Nothing. "I'm good, Lucas," I said, smiling softly. I painted my own story. I walked away, the festival lights glowing behind me, the scent of summer in the air, feeling lighter than ever. Now, I'm 30, living my truth. My book's gaining traction, my YouTube channel's thriving, and I'm planning a trip to Italy to illustrate for an art residency. I date when it feels right, but my worth doesn't depend on anyone else. Love's not a perfect painting, it's messy, real, and possible when you're whole. Chicago's still my home, its gritty streets and glowing skyline a reminder of how far I've come. I'm not the girl who mourned a lie anymore, I'm the woman who painted her own story, one stroke, one step, one color at a time. So, what's your story of love, loss, or finding your light? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear it. If this hit home, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for listening. See you next time.